The Children's Crusade refers to a series of events in the early 13th century, around 1212, rather than the 12th century, but it is often considered a semi-mythical episode, with unclear and conflicting historical accounts. In 1212, during the height of the crusading fervor that had gripped Europe since the end of the First Crusade in 1099, there were two distinct movements of children or youths, one in France and one in Germany, that have been collectively remembered as the Children's Crusade. These movements were not officially sanctioned by the Church, and did not involve actual knights or military expeditions, like the traditional Crusades to the Holy Land. The Children's Crusade arose during a time when the papacy and religious leaders were calling for more military campaigns to reclaim Jerusalem and other Christian holy sites from Muslim control. By the early 13th century, many common people believed that divine intervention could succeed where traditional armies had failed. This belief led to the idea that the purity of children might be favored by God, allowing them to succeed in the Crusades where seasoned warriors had struggled. The French version of the Children's Crusade is said to have been initiated by a young shepherd boy named Stephen of Cloyes, who was about 12 years old. According to some sources, Stephen claimed to have received a divine vision from Jesus, instructing him to lead a group of children to the Holy Land to peacefully reclaim Jerusalem from Muslim rule. His message resonated with many people, and soon he had gathered thousands of children and young peasants who believed in his mission. Stephen and his followers marched through France, with the aim of reaching the Mediterranean Sea, where they believed the waters would part miraculously, allowing them to walk to Jerusalem. As they traveled, they gained the attention of the French clergy and nobility, some of whom were sympathetic to the cause, but skeptical of the logistics of the mission. Ultimately, it is reported that many of the children were either sold into slavery, died from starvation, or were abandoned along the way. Around the same time, a boy named Nicholas of Cologne in Germany also began to preach about a divine vision he had received. Nicholas, too, gathered thousands of children and young people who were inspired by his message. The German group made their way across the Alps, enduring harsh conditions and significant loss of life due to hunger, exhaustion, and the treacherous terrain. Nicholas's group reached Italy, where they expected to receive transportation across the Mediterranean Sea. However, like the French group, many of Nicholas's followers met tragic fates. Some historical accounts suggest that unscrupulous merchants took advantage of the children, selling them into slavery in North Africa and other regions. Neither of the groups associated with the Children's Crusade ever reached the Holy Land. The children who survived the journey returned home, disillusioned, while many others perished or were enslaved. Despite its tragic outcome, the Children's Crusade left a lasting impression on the European imagination. It became a symbol of religious zeal gone awry, where the innocence and fervor of youth were manipulated or misguided by the unrealistic ideals of the time. Historians today debate the exact nature of these events. Some argue that the Children's Crusade was not composed solely of children, but included adolescents, young peasants, and impoverished adults. Others suggest that the term, crusade, is somewhat misleading, as the movement did not involve any formal military action or papal endorsement. Additionally, the precise details of the journey, particularly the fate of the children, are difficult to verify, as much of the story is derived from later accounts that may have embellished or altered the facts. The Children's Crusade of 1212 is a deeply symbolic episode from the medieval period, illustrating both the power of religious belief in the Middle Ages and the vulnerabilities of the lower classes. Whether seen as a misguided attempt at religious devotion or a tragic manipulation of young people's faith, the movement remains one of the more poignant and mysterious chapters in the history of the Crusades.